feedback into consideration, and we're really looking to see how we can continue to grow this moving forward. Yes, it is hard to believe that. I just had to share this because you get to see Shanthi and I a lot, and I really lost count. But I want you to look at these faces because these are presenters, not just from the State Department. There's at least 3 Alabama Teacher of the Years represented here, multiple leaders. Every single person you see on this screen volunteered their time. Not a single person in this group was paid any kind of stipend. They were asking, can we participate? Just like tonight, folks are wanting to pay it forward because we had people that fed us as young teachers and said, hey, let me put you under my wing and support you. And so it was really important for me just to go back to look at all of the people who have brought us to this 12th week and thank them for their investment in this network and this community. They have asked, when can I come back? And I'm like, it's over. Well, this is the last one. So please feel any of those that you really connected with. I know it means a lot to them, and many of you have already done that, to shoot them an email because they really just did this to be a blessing to each of you and as part of their kind of paying it forward. Now, he may not be the only one, but Anthony, I have to throw you out so everyone can see. Just in case you did not know, one of our preppers is, I love you guys, call yourselves that, Mr. Anthony Moffitt from Ronald McNair Junior High is Huntsville City's Teacher of the Year. Can we just get him yes, either emojis and Anthony, I don't see everybody.
Awesome.
Do you see, is Mr. Monfett with us? I see him.
I'm here.
Oh, there he is. I hear him. So you didn't know I was doing that. So surprise. And you had a great question that our friends are going to answer tonight. But anything you'd like to say to the group as the new toy at McNair?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
I was just saying, anything you want to say, when you're a toy, you got to do a lot of speaking engagement. So anything you want to say to your fellow preppers?
I use a lot of AI in the classroom, and I try to incorporate technology as much as I can. So I felt like that's definitely helped me in my first couple of years. So.
Well, Anthony, we are super proud of you, and I've actually already reached out to your district leaders, and they are very proud as well. And if there is another toy in the room that we just may not know about, you just need to share the love. Now, what I'd like you to do is I want you to get your phones out, and I want you to scan that QR code, and I'm going to pull this up too, and then we're going to pass it to our certification friends. And it's going to take you, I'm going to go to the same, I'm going to demonstrate for you. And then we're going to give you, because we cannot have a session where you guys are not getting together and talking, networking. So if you would, go ahead and pull up that QR code, and it's going to look a little bit like this. I'm going to go to it too. I'll pull it up on another screen. So it should look like this, and I can put the link in the chat. I'm about to do that too. I'm going to throw this link in the chat. So if you just want to use your phone, you can. Your laptop or your computer, you can. So when you go here, don't click on any of that stuff, but you're going to see a card deck. And what I want you to do is, when you feel the Lord lead you, I want you to pick a card, any card. So I have a 9 of spades. And since I am spades, my job is to think over the last 12 weeks of spending time with each of you, what are some things that I had to dig up? Like after our meeting, I went straight to Google. I had to dig it up. I needed more information. I heard Carissa's stuff about lesson plans, and I want to Google that. So I want you to do what I just did and pick a card, any card. And if you picked a heart, I'm going to give you some wait time here. I want you to think about something that touched your heart during these last 12 weeks, something that made you feel a certain way. If you got clubs, I want you to think about something that grew, maybe a new idea. Oh, I didn't know about that. A new point of view, because a lot of you are like, this is not what I thought teaching was. If you got diamonds, I want you to think about, things that last forever. What's something in 10 years when I run into Carol, or I'm looking at all my names here, or I run into Kim or Carla, and I say, hey, remember we hung out 10 years ago in this prep? What did you remember? What are those things that you're going to remember most about our time together? And then, like I said, if you get spades like I did, something that you Googled, something that you researched after one of our sessions. So I'm gonna give you a minute. If you want to take a picture of this with your phone because you're about to go in breakout rooms. So if you want to take a picture of this so you don't forget, and then I'm gonna let you guys get into very small groups for a few minutes, and I want you to share in your groups which one of those that you selected and what you chose as your response. And I will do that. So please go ahead and use that link so that you can share with the rest of the prep network and your prep community some of those things that are going to stick with you and just give us some general reflections. And with that, I think we have the link now. I'm going to quit sharing, and Ms. Harris, I'm going to give it to you guys and let you introduce yourselves.
Certainly. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you more than anything for your decision to become an educator. We know how important this job is. We know how selfless this job is, and we know how much our children need wonderful teachers such as yourselves. Tonight, we're going to do something that I'm sure you all probably, we're never sought out until we're needed in my office, but what we do in the office is certification. So I'm sure you have several questions. We're going to go through some of the certification pathways that may be of interest to you, and we'll answer any questions that we have time to answer. If we get into a situation where we have too many questions, we'll definitely take some additional time another day to meet with you all to ensure that you get on the pathway to obtaining professional certification. Okay. So if you give me just a minute here to share my screen. And again, my name is Shavon Harris, and I am the director for the Office of Teaching and Leading, which includes educator certification, background reviews, teacher mentoring, educator assessment, and a few other areas. So we do everything that deals with certification. So where you are right now, can everyone see my screen? Okay. So I'm sure you're wondering, what's your next step? I hope that by this time you have met with your human resources department with your school system. If you have not, that is where you need to go tomorrow. I know it seems like, while you're on the emergency certificate, you have a long time, but I tell you that time flies by. So we're going to go through a few things with you tonight. We're going to consider, do you know where you are and where you stand as far as your emergency certification is concerned, what certification pathways you may want to consider. And then we're going to have Dr. Peacock to talk about educator testing. I know some of you mentioned that you were having a difficult time passing the praxis. So we're going to go through some tidbits there for you, and then we'll take time to answer any questions that you have. Just a disclaimer out there, the information that we're going to share in this presentation, we're just going to hit the high points. But for all-inclusive information, you'll need to definitely visit our website and review the current application forms, which will give you the all-inclusive information that you need. Also, as I mentioned before, your human resources department should be able to guide you through the process. They have someone that is directly responsible for certification, and that person has a contact that they have direct contact with in our office. So they always have the assistance that they need to assist you. Okay, do you know where you are? What I want to do quickly is I'm going to take you to, if it goes, all right. The link that I provided there, this is our certification search page. What this does is if you put in your name, and I'll use myself as an example, and hit search, this will bring up all of your certification, your certificates that you hold, okay? Any certificates that you've held previously and any that you currently hold. You always need to know the status of your certificates, you know, whether they're valid, how many years they're valid, which certification pathway you're on, etc. As you can see here, this page tells me there's only one Shavon Yvette Harris in the system, so that's the only one that came up. But this tells me here which certificates I hold. I hold a leadership certificate that's currently valid, a Class AA, which is the 6-year level, and then the Class A, which is the master's level. And then I also have a Class B elementary education certificate. All of those things, certificates are valid. If you scroll down, here also, you'll see some other just general information and disclaimers, but it also gives the background review status of your background review of your criminal history status. So this is all public information, but you can go here and you can always view your certificate information, okay? And I point this out because I know some of you are on the first year emergency certificate on the first 2 years, some of you are on your second too. So you need to know what certificates you're on and what you have available moving forward, okay? So let me switch back here if I can find my screen. Okay. So as I said before, always know the specifics of your certification pathway. There are several certification pathways, and we're going to talk about a few of them, but it is important that you know the specifics. It's your livelihood and your responsibility. And I say this because I can't tell you how many calls I get either at the end of the, if someone starts an alternative pathway, and they call and they're crying because they did not complete whatever coursework they needed to complete, or they didn't do whatever professional learning they were supposed to do. They'll say, my school system didn't tell me, my principal didn't tell me. They are there to be a guide for you, but ultimately, this is your livelihood and your responsibility, okay? Also, as you're going through this process, you're going to have several certification documents that you'll probably have to sign. Do not sign them without reading them, because those are, in essence, your contracts. So whatever you start on, that is your certification contract, if you're doing an alternate pathway especially. And make sure that you understand what's being asked of you. If you don't understand it, ask for them to elaborate on what you're required to do. Okay. Okay. Oh, shucks. How did I go back, Melissa? Here it is. Okay. All right. So as I said, all of you are on either an emergency certificate or are on a career and technical temporary certificate. These are all valid for 2 consecutive school years, and they can be reissued once for an additional 2 school years. So you can have a total of 4 years holding this certificate. I promise you those 4 years go by very quickly. I sent emails to school systems last year advising them that at least 175 individuals would not be able to proceed on because they had used up all 4 years of their emergency certificate and had not done anything to progress to the next step. So even though it seems like you have a long time, please do not wait till the last minute. Also, I encourage you to go ahead and begin on a certification pathway just as soon as you can, because while you're on an emergency or a career and technical temporary certificate, you are not, it's not counting toward your continuous service status, meaning you're not earning tenure while you're on these certificates. So it is incumbent upon you to go ahead and get on a pathway that leads to professional certification, okay? Okay, the certification pathways that we're going to cover tonight, they are some minimal things that are required. So with all of them, you're going to be required to do at least the application. And there are some specific documents that go along with each application. There's also a $38 application fee. There's the background check, your fingerprints. You also have lawful presence. You have to verify that you're either you're lawfully present in the United States or that you're a United States citizen. And then that you have at least a bachelor's degree from a regionally accredited institution. So all of you have done the degree part. All of you have met the lawful presence and you've applied and you've met your background. If not, you would not hold the emergency certificate, okay? All right, so we're going to start with just a few of the certification pathways. The first one we're going to address, it's called certificate reciprocity. The reason I bring this one up is because I understand that some individuals choose to go outside of the state to do online programs. Some of the ones that we see a lot are Grand Canyon, Walden University, and I'm not endorsing any institution, but those are just some of the ones that we see a lot of. If you choose to go outside of the state to complete an educator preparation program, understand that you will not be eligible for a certification just because you complete that program. If you choose to do that, you're going to need to go to that state Department of Education and earn their professional certificate. So our certificate reciprocity is just what it is. You have to have a professional certificate from that state, okay? And if you do a program outside of the state, you need to speak with someone at their Department of Education as well, because a lot of the programs that are online are what you would call non-certification programs, meaning they do not lead to certification. So you need to have some conversations with the advisors at the institution that you're attending and with those individuals at the Department of Education in that state. Once you earn that certificate, then you can apply to us through certificate reciprocity, okay? While you're completing this program, there are no alternative certificates that you can hold while you're completing it. The only certificates you can hold are the emergency certificates, okay? Melissa, how do you normally handle questions? Do you allow them to ask throughout or at the end?
It's like you read my mind.
Okay.
Since you have colleagues with you, many times our friends will answer for us while the other's presenting.
Okay.
So
All right.
whatever's most comfortable for you. Now, we have a lot of questions, and I know.
Oh, okay.
I think you probably want to wait till the end. So
Okay.
if
let's see if we could go back just a bit so that, because I really try to answer them in the time so that it'll make sense. Okay. Let's see.
I think the most recent one is
Okay.
what if you have a master's degree?
Okay, I'm going to get to that one, so we can just keep going. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And Shavon, it might just be good to mention right here, because I'm watching the chat as well and seeing questions, but a lot of the questions that come in, we try to be very careful in our department to not answer what we call a general question, because everyone's situation is slightly different. And so it's very difficult for us to just answer a question off the cuff when we are not looking at your file and we're not looking at your specific information. So it may be best in the end, in sharing our contacts, if there are questions, and they can contact us afterwards, and then we can look up their specific file and make sure we're giving a complete answer that would be correct for their particular situation, because I'm seeing a lot in here that I know we can't answer without pulling files and looking at individual people.
Okay. All right. Okay. And we'll go back through and make sure we share our contact information as well.
Okay.
Okay, so the first alternate pathway that we'll discuss is what's called the provisional certificate in a teaching field. And this is probably our most popular alternate pathway. This certificate is requested by your school district. So this is done in partnership with your school district. It is available for K-12, 6-12, and 4-8 teaching fields only. So when I say K-12, that does not include elementary or early childhood. When I say K-12, I mean like for physical education, visual arts, those type of K-12 teaching fields. It's also available, like I said, for 6-12 teaching fields. In the 6-12 teaching fields are include the 5 career tech areas, career technologies, business marketing education, agri-science. What are my other 2, Kelly?
Family and consumer science and computer science.
And computer science. Thank you. Okay. And then it's also available for 4-8 teaching fields. All of the available teaching fields can be found on our application form. And when you apply for this, you have to meet requirements by October 1. The school systems do these all the time. They're very familiar with the requirements for this pathway, and they will be the ones to walk you through this. Okay. Anytime you hold an alternative certificate, there's a maximum of 3 alternative certificates of any kind that can be held. So once you choose a pathway, I need for you to stick with that pathway and complete it in its entirety. There are all sorts of issues that you'll cause for yourself if you start one and then decide that you want to do another. You really lose a lot of time. So please make sure that you investigate the options before you begin on the pathway.
Yeah, if you want.
Okay. All right, so what we'll get into, and I'm going to spend a little time with this for you, is the eligibility requirements in order to get your first provisional certificate. Okay, so let's use, for example, someone who wants to teach English for grade 6 to 12. The options for a degree requirement, you can hold a bachelor's degree, and you have to have an overall grade point average of at least a 2.5 on a 4.0 scale. Or you could have a master's or a higher degree with a minimum GPA of at least 3.0. Okay, we put or master's because we do understand that some individuals may not have done as well with their bachelor's, but they have gone on to get their master's degree. Then there's option 3. You don't meet the 2.5 GPA requirement, but you have at least a 2.0 to 2.9, 49, I'm sorry, on a 4.0 scale, but you have earned an increased praxis score. So if you don't have the required 2.5 GPA, you can still do this pathway, but you have to attain the increased praxis score, okay? And I put the link here. And Melissa, they do have access to the PowerPoint once we're done, correct?
Yes, and William and I and Sue Ellen are throwing in links as you say them.
Okay,
So
all right, thank you.
We got you.
Thank you, okay. All right, so what I've included there is the link directly to those increased praxis scores should you not meet the GPA requirement, okay? Then we have an option for members of the United States Armed Forces. So let's say, for instance, you were a member of the United States Armed Forces and you have a master's or a higher degree in the subject area to be taught, and you have at least a 3.0. So let's say you have a master's in English and you want to teach English language arts. If you have at least a 3.0, then you can utilize this option. We'll request form DD-214 so that we can verify that you were a retiree in good standing, or that you were honorably discharged and had at least 10 years of service. Now, keep this in mind. This is going to make a difference for the members of the U.S. Armed Forces when we get to the next screen. Then, if you want an alternate certificate in dance, Arabic, Chinese, Italian, Japanese, Korean, or Russian, you have to verify a bachelor's degree with a non-education major. So we would look for that in dance rather than dance education. And you would need to have at least 30 semester hours of credit, with 18 of those being upper division level courses. So we would look for 30 semester hours in dance, with 18 of those hours being upper division hours, okay? So that, those are the degree requirements in order to meet eligibility. Now we're gonna move to the test requirements in order to meet eligibility. Option 1, You meet the overall 2.5 GPA, and you earn the current passing score on the praxis for your subject area, okay? Deanise is gonna go through some of those with you guys just a little bit later. But that's option 1, you meet the regular requirements. Option 2, you meet the 2.5 overall GPA, but let's say, for instance, you can't quite pass the praxis, but you did score within 1 standard error of measure of the required score, okay? If you have at least 15 semester hours of coursework with a grade of B or above in the subject area you're going to be teaching, then you can use that score. So let me give you a practical example. You want to teach English. You have the 2.5 GPA. You didn't quite pass the praxis, but you did make that -1 SEM score. You scored it within that range. Do you have at least 15 semester hours of coursework in English, since that's what you want to teach, with at least a grade of B or above? If you do, then you can utilize this option for your testing, okay? The link there will take you to what those -1 SEM score requirements are. Option 3, the individual does not meet the 2.5 overall GPA requirement, but you do have at least a 2.0. You must have the increased praxis score that I mentioned previously, and that link is there as well. Option 4, if you were that individual on the previous slide who met those requirements for the United States Armed Forces, option 4, the praxis subject area test is not required for you. Okay, so I'm gonna stop a minute. Those are the degree requirements and the test requirements for the provisional certificate. Okay. Oh, wow. So there are a few questions here that I can go ahead and address. Someone asked, can they use their scores from 2016? The scores that you must use are the current praxis scores, and those you can find on the ETS website that Deanise is going to share with you. Okay. I took the praxis in English language arts before the scores went up, and I needed a 147, and I made a 146. Why couldn't I be certified within the state of Alabama? When you apply for certification, you have to meet the test requirements that are in effect at the time that you apply for the approach. Okay, the state board adopts the testing as well as the scores that are required. And once the state board adopts those scores, then those are the scores that we must require. Okay. Okay, someone brought up a good point. So this is not talking about working in early childhood, correct? So that is correct. As I said before, this approach is only for K-12 teaching fields, 4 to 8 teaching fields, and 6 to 12 teaching fields. This is not for elementary education. This is not for early childhood education or special education. Okay, someone said, I have not taken the praxis, but I do have the coursework. Do I still need to take the praxis? Yes, you still have to take the praxis. What about for counselors? Counselors, there is a different alternate pathway for you that we could get information to you. Okay. And I see Kelly is answering some of the questions as well as she's going through. Okay. So does this apply to visual arts? Yes, this pathway is available for visual arts should you choose this pathway. Okay, some of the questions about elementary education, I'm going to skip for right now. Okay. All right. So those are the basic eligibility requirements in order to begin the provisional certificate. So there are the degree requirements that you have to meet, and then there's the test requirements that you have to meet. And your school system will make sure that you're teaching full time in the area of your certificate, and you must have a mentor that they've assigned to you. And that's basically all that you have to do in order to qualify for this pathway. Now, while you're on the pathway, you do have to fulfill some additional requirements. There are 4 education courses that you must complete while you're doing this certificate. Remember, as I said, you can hold this certificate for up to 3 years, okay? The 4 courses that you have to take are in classroom management, evaluation of teaching and learning, special needs, and the specific methods course of teaching in the area that you're seeking certification in. So if you're seeking certification in English language arts, then the methods of teaching that you'll need is for English language arts, okay? So you have those 3 years to complete those courses. If you're in one of the 5 areas of career and technical education, there's also a training program, CTE, TCP level 1. Kelly, did they change the name of that?
Yes, it's CTE 101.
Okay, CTE 101, thank you. For those 5 areas of career and technical education. You have to teach full-time each year for that 2nd and 3rd year. Once you get to the professional, then your school system will verify that your experience, your performance was acceptable. And then here's another very important thing. Here's another test requirement that you have. You must earn a passing score on one of our approved pedagogy assessments. There are 2 of them, okay? Let me go into for you real quick why there's 2 and when you can do which one, okay? So the first one we have here is called the Principles of Learning and Teaching Test, the PLT, okay? If you complete all 3 years on your provisional certificate, you have the option of doing the PLT. And the PLT is more of a just a computer-based test where you answer the questions specific to how to teach, okay? But that is required in order to get your professional certificate. Now, let me say, although this approach is for 3 years, you can do it if you feel like you can do it in less than the 3 years. You have that option to do so. You have to do at least 1 year, but you have the option to do it in less than 3 years. Here's the caveat. If you decide you want to do it in the less than the 3 years, instead of the PLT test, you have to do the ALSDE-TPA, which is more of a portfolio-based assessment that Dr. Peacock will talk to you about. So you have those 2 options. Should you choose to stay on the provisional and do all 3 years because you're gaining the necessary experience, then you can do the PLT. If you choose to do it in less than the 3 years, you have to do the ALSDE-TPA. Okay. All right.
Shavon, can I add one thing
sure.
here? Can we just make sure that they understand that the years that they have gained while on the emergency certificate does not count for these years? I see a lot of questions in there.
Okay. All right. So I guess some people are asking questions about whether or not your experience while holding the emergency certificate counts towards this, and it does not. Only the years of experience while you're holding the provisional certificate will count. This certificate, although you can have to do the 3 years, we give you 4 years to do it. Some people need to skip a year for whatever reason, but you have 4 consecutive years to get the 3 years of experience that you need and to complete all the requirements. Okay. Okay. The next certificate that we want to talk about is called the Interim Employment Certificate. And this certificate is, again, requested by your school district. And it's basically a partnership between you, your school district, and the Alabama College or University that you are attending, okay? So this is for individuals who choose to do an alternative master's program at an Alabama college or university, okay? This is available for any P3, K6, 4-8, 6-12, or P12 teaching field that the institution you choose offers. Please, those of you that are in elementary or early childhood or collaborative special education grades K-6, this is the only alternative pathway that you have. Okay, let me say that again. If you're elementary early childhood or collaborative K-6, which is special education K-6, this is the only alternate pathway you have. Here again, you can hold this certificate for up to 3 years. Now, should you choose to do this pathway, there are degree requirements for unconditional admission to the program, okay? You have to hold the appropriate degree. In order to get the first certificate, what you'll need to do is you'll need to start with the certification officer in the college or the school of education at the institution. You'll need to be admitted to the institution. You'll need to be unconditionally admitted to the program. Please know that some institutions require some tests before unconditional admission. So for example, with elementary education, they may require some components of the praxis prior to admission, okay? In the link here under first certificate, this will take you to our webpage, and it lists all of the Alabama colleges and universities and the contact information, each of the certification officers and the dean. Okay. So here again, for this certificate, you can hold up to 3. You must be unconditionally admitted to the program. And then once you've been unconditionally admitted to the program, then your school system will request the interim employment certificate for you. You can hold up to 3. You'll also have to have an appropriate assignment as well as a mentor for this process. In order to get the second and the third certificates, as you can see there, in order to get the second certificate, you'll have to earn at least 3 courses in the program, credit for at least 3 courses in the program. And in order to get the third certificate, you'll have to have earned credit for at least an additional 4 courses in the program. Once you complete the program and you've passed all the appropriate assessments, then the college or university will recommend you for the professional certificate. So in essence, this alternative certificate is just to facilitate your employment while you're completing requirements of the program. Okay. Okay. The next one, this one is for special education, okay? Special education for grades 6 through 12 only. This is called the temporary special education certificate. So you can choose to do the state approved program and hold the interim employment certificate for grades 6 to 12 special ed, or you can choose the temporary special education pathway. This is another alternate pathway. There again, there's a limit of 3 of these certificates that you can hold, and they must be requested by your employing school district. Okay. There is a bachelor's, there are degree requirements here that must be met. Again, the 2.5 GPA. If you have a bachelor's degree or a master's, we'll accept the 3.0. For this approach also, there are 5 education courses specific to special education that have to be completed, okay? They have to be completed at an Alabama college or university that's authorized to provide this coursework, and they must be completed at the same Alabama college or university, The link there that's provided, that gives you information on which institutions provide the coursework, as well as a listing of the required coursework. Okay. You'll have to register for at least 2 of the special education professional learning activities with our special education section here. There are a series of them that have to be completed in order to get the professional certificate. And then you have to have an appropriate teaching assignment, and here again, a mentor through the Alabama Teacher Mentor Program. That's for eligibility into the program. In order to get the second certificate, you have to show that you've taught full-time for the full year. You have to also show that you've earned credit for at least 2 of the required courses of those 5. You have to complete at least 2 of the required special education professional learning activities. There are also a series of practical field experiences that's required, and you have to show verification that you've completed at least 2 of those. And there again, appropriate teaching assignment and mentor through the Alabama Teacher Mentor Program. In order to get the 3rd certificate, as you can see, this is just repeating itself. Your teaching experience, the additional courses, the additional professional learning activities, and practical field experiences, and full-time teaching assignment. In order to get the professional certificate, the experience is required, successful performance that's verified by your school district, completion of all the required courses, all of the special education professional learning activities, and the 4 practical field experiences. In order to get the professional, you also have to verify that you have passed the praxis for a collaborative teacher for grades 6 through 12. For this approach, the praxis is required at the end because you're going to be learning a lot of the material that you'll need while you're fulfilling the requirements in the position, okay? Here again, also, although 3 one-year certificates may be requested, if you feel like you can complete it in a year's time, then you have the option to do so here as well, okay? All right, let's see if I can go back to answer any questions. Like I said, I'm not gonna answer any about testing. Deanise will get those for elementary testing. One of the questions, does TSET count towards tenure? Yes, it does count toward continuing service status. I see somebody saying a mentor. We probably need to talk about that. Okay, I see in order to hold an IEC, you have to be enrolled in an alternative program, correct? In order to hold an IEC, you have to be unconditionally admitted to a program at an Alabama college or university. So yes, you have to be in the alternative program at the Alabama college or university. Okay. And I know this is a lot for you. That's why I said, before we got started, these are conversations that you really need to sit down and have with your certification contact in HR with your school district, and not wait till the last minute to do so. There are going to be steps involved in each pathway, and each pathway is very specific. So the ones I covered for you are certificate reciprocity, the provisional certificate pathway, which is for K-12, 6-12, and 4-8 teaching fields. The interim employment certificate is going to cover teaching fields for any grade level. And remember, that one is the only one that's available for elementary, early childhood, and for collaborative K-6. And then you have the last one, which is the temporary special education certificate, which is for a collaborative teacher for grades 6 through 12. Okay. So I'm going to stop here and I'll turn it over to Dr. Kelly Stanton, and she'll pick up and she's going to talk about some of the career and technical education pathways.
Shavon, really quick before Dr. Stanton starts, there's been several questions over here too about the October 1 deadline.
Okay.
So we may want to explain that that's a yearly thing.
Okay.
All right. We haven't missed that forever and ever. We've just missed it for this school year.
Right. So each year, the deadline for application for an alternative certificate is October 1. So no, even though you may have missed it for this school year, next school year, make sure that you have everything in order so that your school district can apply for your first certificate for you. Now, for the interim IEC, there is not a deadline. For that one, they can apply at any time because the experience is not the moving to the next certificate is not contingent upon having the experience. For the IEC, you have to make sure that you're completing the coursework at the Alabama College or University. But for the provisional and the temporary special education certificate, the deadline for application is October the 1st. Okay, someone's saying that, right, we're a whole year behind because we did not get this information until now. And it is actually, that's why I'm directing you back to your HR department with your school district. It is their responsibility to, you know, assist you with this process so that you can get on a pathway for professional certification. When you're on an IEC, yes, that the years on an IEC do go towards tenure as well. How are mentors assigned? Is this supposed to be provided by the state or the school district? Your mentors are assigned by your school district. If you are on year 4 of emergency, are you able to start an IEC? You can start an IEC at any time, yes. Your HR told you that you would have to go to an interim certificate since you started grad school. And is that what I'm talking about? So if you are in an alternative master's program, the key is at an Alabama college or university, then yes, your certificate should probably be the interim employment certificate. Okay. Yes, as far as the mentor is concerned, like I said, you talk to your district office and they are supposed to assign a mentor for you. Okay. And the program that you're talking about, if you're doing a graduate program outside of the state, that's the first one I talked about for certificate reciprocity. If you're doing a program that's outside of the state, there is no alternative certificate that you can hold while you're completing that program. The only thing you can hold is the emergency certificate. I will encourage you, though, to make sure that you have reached out to the State Department of Education of that state to ensure that the program, once you've completed it, leads to professional certification in that state. Once you attain that certification, then you can apply to us through certificate reciprocity. Okay, and I'm going to stop here because we're going to run out of time. I see there's still a whole lot of questions, but we're going to let Dr. Kelly Stanton move on and talk about career and technical education, and I'll continue to try to answer some of your questions in the chat while she's talking.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me? You can? Thumbs up. Okay, great. So for the career and technical education route is twofold. Most of the individuals or all of the individuals that are on this call today are presumably on a career and technical temporary certificate. So in order to progress to a certificate that will be a renewable certificate, we have to start with our degree equivalent. The degree equivalent is twofold. You have our technical ed, and then we have health science. So as I progress, for time's sake, to make sure Dr. Peacock has enough time, I'm going to be speaking as if these are in line with each other, okay? So it'll be the only one or two clear distinctions in what I'm going to say, and I'll make sure that you understand where that meets. Okay, for this particular approach, to start this approach, you would have to talk to your HR director or your career tech director to begin, because you would have to know what specific career and technical program areas they're interested in hiring you in or for you to be serving in. Right now, we have over close to 72 different program areas, and then they are available on the application for the degree equivalent. The first application has to be requested by your HR director. After that, the second, third, fourth, and fifth application can be self-submitted. Please proceed. Okay, so let me just tell you a little bit about all of the things that you can experience. So although Ms. Harris told you at the beginning of this presentation that you have to have a degree in order to begin all of the approaches that she spoke about, well, this is a caveat for me. You do not have to have a degree in order to begin my approach. You can have at least a GED or a high school diploma to begin here. the name of the certificate tells you at the pay level that you should begin. So this route is for individuals that's entering the field of education based off of your experience in industry. So if you were a mechanic or you were a carpenter, if you were a lineman for Alabama Power, all of those things, you're bringing your industry experience to career tech. It's also have 5 levels. And like I said, each one of these levels, you have to progress. So you can't, although you may have a terminal degree or a doctoral degree, you can't start with the 6-year equivalent. Everyone starts with the bachelor's equivalent 1. The reason for that is that we have to ensure that the area that the superintendent is requesting is an area that we have available, and then that you have the experience in the area that they are requesting, okay? All right, Shavon, you may proceed. Okay, so to begin the bachelor's equivalent 1, this is a 2-year non-renewable certificate. So it allows you time to be able to prepare for the previous certificate or the subsequent certificates, I'm sorry. So that would be for the 2, the 3, and the 4. So if you have less than a bachelor's degree, you would be at option 1. So that would be a high school diploma, or GED, or an associate's degree. You would have to do what we call our CTE Work Keys assessment. And then I'll make sure that I put that link into the chat for you. And then you have to have 3 years within the past 7 years of work experience in the area that they are requesting. And then you also have to have what we call our occupational proficiency. Now, this would be equivalent to people that Shavon or Ms. Harris was previously talking about taking the practice exam. This would be equivalent to that. So a lot of times our occupational proficiencies could be your degree, it could be training, it can be typically those or training or tests that you have taken, okay? We have a specific test and occupational proficiencies that are outlined for each of our specific technical ed program areas. So that's for option 1. For option 2, if you have a bachelor's degree or higher, it has to be from a regionally accredited institution. And you only have to have 2 years within the past 5 years within the area that you are seeking, and also have the entry level or master level occupational proficiency. The clear distinction here is that you do not have to have the CTE Work Keys, the basic skills assessment, complete. Or you can have option 3. If you have 10 years of industry experience in the area that they are seeking you to be employed in, and you also have, if you have less than a bachelor's degree, you'll have to do the CTE Work Keys. But if you have a bachelor's, you're exempt. And then you have to do the entry level or master level occupational proficiency. Now, this is relatively new. If you have post-secondary and P12 teaching experience, post-secondary has always been allowable. But our P12 teaching experience is relatively new. We have taken, it was once removed, and now we have allowed that to come back. But it's only for the areas of business, finance, marketing, and administration, early childhood education, and educators in training. So if you have teaching experience in those areas, then we will allow you to use that experience. It has to be verified from your employer on a certain document that we have. That's why I'm stressing that it is very important that you speak to your career tech director. They will help guide you. We provide intensive training to our CTE directors, and so they have a understanding of what is required for each one of these as you progress. Okay, let's move to the bachelor's equivalent 2.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay, for the bachelor's equivalent 2, a lot of people get to the bachelor's equivalent 2 and they stay here until they retire, because this is our 5-year renewable certificate. And in order to progress to this, you have to complete the CTE TCP program. This program is designed, it's an in-house program. So the State Department of Education has designed this program, and what it does is it provides teachers with an opportunity to be exposed to special education, our career tech, CTSOs, mentorship. It also gives you some classroom management, some evaluation tools. So all of that is encompassed in this year-long program. It is free of charge to you. if you were exempt from taking the CTE basic skills for whatever reason for the first one, you are required to have it for the second one. And then for each time you progress, you have to take the entry level or master level occupational proficiency that's in effect at the time that you apply. So although you may have applied for we awarded you your bachelor's equivalent 1 based off an occupational proficiency, that may have been 2 years ago. If the occupational proficiency has changed, then you would have to meet the current occupational proficiency at the time that the application is submitted. And remember, this application you can submit on your own. You do not have to wait for your HR director or your CTE director. Once you have met the requirements, you can apply. Okay. Any questions? Okay.
Yes, Kelly.
Okay. We have some questions, Shavon.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. All right. For the master's equivalent 3, remember this allows an individual to be paid at the master's level. Although you may only have a high school diploma or an associate's degree, you at this point will be able to get master's level pay. In order to do that, you see a clear distinction that has started here. You cannot no longer choose the master level or the entry level occupational proficiency. You can only do the master level occupational proficiency. That document is available on our website, and I will put the link so that you will have that reference, so you can be able to pull it up. You would have to take 4 courses. It is a recency requirement on there, so the courses have been taken within 5 years from the date that your application is submitted. And you see the list of courses. 2 of those courses are required, and then the other 2 you can choose out of the list of 5 or 6 that's on that list. Or option 2, you also have to have the master level occupational proficiency, but if you have 7 years of work experience, it's no recency requirement there. And you also can complete the CTE TCP level 2. You can come in through the master's equivalent 3 using option 2. But the catch there is you have to have 7 years of work experience in the area that you are seeking, okay? And I also want to be very clear. If you start off in carpentry for the 1, when you get to the 3, you still have to apply and meet the requirements for carpentry. You can't move over to heavy equipment or to cosmetology. You start with cosmetology, then you will end with cosmetology. We have other approaches that would allow you to add, but through this route, once you start, then that's the technical ed program area that you have to finish with.
Kelly, I have a question for you. What does master's level occupational proficiency mean?
The clear distinction from the entry level to the master level is, I guess, the rigor in what they're looking for. For the entry level is typically, we have associate's degrees, can be some of them. I just use engineering as an example. For the entry level to begin or to start off with this approach, you have to have at least a bachelor's degree in engineering. But for the master's level, you have to have a master's degree in engineering, or you may have to have just a NOCTI exam in engineering. So they have leveled off these occupational proficiencies based off of hierarchy, I guess they would say, or what is the word I'm looking for, Shavon? Rigor would be the word. Any other questions? Okay. Okay. A bachelor's degree for the master's equivalent 4, this is a 5-year renewable certificate. You have to hold a bachelor's degree from a regional accredited institution, and it has to be in the technical ed program area or in a related area. Right now, if you have completed the bachelor's degree, I know this question is going to come up, from Athens, we are able to accept them in 2 of the areas that we have right now. So if it's in curriculum and instruction, you would need to reach out to me to see if that one is approved. Some stipulations there. But the other 2, Korean technical and then just information technology, those 2 are approved areas, no matter if it's in cosmetology, heavy equipment, or power equipment. So any of those we can accept. You also have to have the master level occupational proficiency, which again, I said I'll put that list so that you can see what is required depending on which technical ed program area you're interested in. Option 2, if you have a valid professional certificate, Class B certificate in any teaching field, and you've completed the master level occupational proficiency, then you're able to move to that one. I think my time is running out. Shavon, do you see we just down to a few minutes on there? Do I need to switch over to Deanise? She'll say just 11 minutes. Okay.
Yes,
I will be okay. I will be happy to answer any questions. I'll stay a few minutes after for any, but I do just want to quickly show them health science. Shavon, just if you'll quickly just move to health science, it'll take me just 1 second there. It's the next slide. Go over one more. I just want to make sure that you understand for health science, the clear distinction here is that you have to have at least an associate's degree to begin this approach. Whereas with tech ed, you could have a high school diploma, GED, or an associate. But to begin for health science, you have to have at least an associate's degree in nursing, and then be able to have a RN license or a health field license of some type. Okay. Dr. Peacock, I'm sorry, I'll turn it over to you. And if you have any questions, I'll stay after a few minutes to be able to answer any questions about CTE certification. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Shavon, you want to, she's looking, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to be very brief, go through this as quickly as I can. I'm going to be talking with you a little bit about the assessments that are required in Alabama for various certifications that you may be receiving depending on the approach that you're going through. My name is Deanise Peacock, and I am the assessment administrator here at the department. So I am the assessment person, the person that you would ask questions about praxis testing and other testing. So certainly if you have questions, you can reach out to me by email afterwards. But there are 2 types of assessments that are required in Alabama. There are content knowledge assessments, and those are the assessments that gauge your area of expertise or your level of expertise within the subject that you're teaching. And then there are performance assessments, and I know Ms. Harris went over a little bit of this with you already. Those would be the assessments that help to know if you are able to teach those subjects to students. So there are lots of people that become experts in their field. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be able to be good teachers and to get that information to their students, differentiated in the instruction based on individual needs while managing behavior and doing all of the other things that you all know we do, multitasking in a classroom. So those are the 2 areas of assessments that we look at here in Alabama. You can go ahead and advance, Shavon. Okay, I've already covered content knowledge assessments. All right, when we say content knowledge assessments in Alabama, basically we mean praxis testing. That's what praxis testing is. It's content knowledge assessments. I do have a link here for the praxis page. Now, the most important part about this link is that little AL that's on the end of the address. And that is because this will take you to Alabama's praxis site. Praxis is used in lots of different states. They have a main praxis page that a lot of times people go to and get themselves into trouble that may have 2 or 3 different secondary math exams or 2 or 3 different middle school English exams. And so that's not going to help you know what you need for Alabama. So that AL at the end is very, very important for you to know what is the required test here in Alabama. Okay. All right, important information. As I just said, use Alabama's page when you're registering for a test. This will decrease your chances of taking an incorrect test. If you are testing at home, there's an option through a company called ProctorU that's on the website. And you can do that. A lot of people have gotten to where they enjoy taking things in the privacy of their own home. It's a little less stressful. They know their computer, that sort of thing. And we do permit you to do that. If you test at home, there are a couple of important things that you need to know. Your physical address on your registration with Praxis guides what happens with your test scores. So you might be sitting in your house in Auburn, Alabama, taking this test, but your physical address is in Louisiana. That test score is not going to come to Alabama because they don't know where you're sitting taking it. They're going to look at that physical address. So if your physical address is outside of the state of Alabama, you need to use the code 7020 when you register. That's the code for Alabama, and that will make your score come to us. If you don't use that, it's going to go to Louisiana. We won't receive it, and then they'll charge you more money to send it, which no one wants to pay more money if they don't have to. There is the option to test inside of the state without using that code if your address is a physical address here. So I'm testing in Auburn. I live in Auburn. My physical address is in Auburn. It's going to come to us automatically. So then you don't have to use that code. But always check that to be sure that you're getting it sent to us without incurring additional expenses. All right, next slide. Okay, foundations of reading. This only applies to individuals that are in early childhood, elementary, and collaborative special education K-6. Those are the only 3 areas that are required to do this test. Now, foundations of reading is not a Praxis test. It is actually administered by the same company that does EdTPA, if you've heard of EdTPA, but it has its own site. Here's a picture of the site down here at the bottom, as well as the link showing you how to get to that website. Once you get there, there's lots of very useful information on how to register for the test, how to prepare for the test, and so forth. This test is heavily rooted in current science of reading practices. So this is a test that's very valuable to those that are working with our younger individuals who are learning to read. So that's what Foundations of Reading is all about. Next slide. All right, so important information here with Foundations of Reading. As I said, those are the 3 areas where it's required. It's not required anywhere else. We used to use a Praxis test. That was the 5205 teaching reading. We no longer use that test. We use Foundations of Reading. That change happened back in 2022. So this is a place where people get themselves into trouble. They go out to the main Praxis site and they see Praxis 5205, which is still a test used by Praxis. It's just not used in Alabama. They register for it, they take it, and then when they don't get their certificate because it's not an Alabama requirement, it's, you know, it's a sad moment for all of us, and I sympathize and I'll cry with you, but I can't change the rules. So again, that's why using Alabama's pages is so important there. All right, next slide. Then we move into our performance assessments. This again is showing how you perform as a teacher, pedagogy. Can you teach this information to students, manage behavior, differentiate instruction, assess and determine next steps, those kinds of things. So your performance assessment, and I know this has been a lot of information to take in, but Ms. Harris mentioned at the beginning, you have options, and it depends on the pathway you're on and how long you're on that pathway, whether you can do the Praxis performance assessment, which is the Principles of Learning and Teaching test, or if you have to do the EdTPA. The EdTPA is a more involved process. It is a portfolio. It does require you videotaping lessons and writing commentaries and reflecting upon your classroom journey as you're going through it. So it is more involved than doing the PLT for sure. So you will want to know all of your options with your specific approach, and that will help you to make a determination on which one of those assessments are needed and which one would be best for your specific situation. Okay, next slide. Okay, and I've already kind of gone through this, but again, the principles of learning and teaching, that's a praxis test. It does have two different tests. One covers case 6, one covers 612. It has multiple choice questions, and then it also has some constructed responses, short answer type questions. But again, it's very limited, those that can use this test. Not very many situations, but a few. Next. All right, and then we get to EdTPA. Again, here's your link for the EdTPA page for Alabama. There's lots of EdTPA pages, just like there are lots of praxis pages. You want to land on EdTPA for Alabama so that you can find our requirements here in the state regarding what you need to do with that. Okay, next one. Trying to move quickly. EdTPA goes through 3 pieces. You have 3 tasks: a planning task where you talk about what you're going to teach. You pick a lesson that you're going to do. So let's say I'm a science teacher. And so the lesson that I'm going to be teaching has to do with the human body. So I'm going to write up lesson plans on what I will be teaching in relation to that. That's my planning portion. Then I'm going to videotape myself teaching those lessons. That's your instruction piece. And then I'm going to assess my students on what I've taught, and I'm going to determine next steps based on how well they do on that assessment. So that's your 3rd piece. Elementary does have 1 additional task because they are tested in both the reading side and the math side, but every other one has the 3 tasks. So that's what EdTPA is all about: planning, teaching, and assessing. Okay, next. Okay, I get these questions all the time, and we could talk about this for the next 3 days. But I'm going to give you just some quick blurbs on study materials and suggestions for you. And the bottom line is this: when you're going to prepare to take a test, whether it's praxis or EdTPA or foundations of reading or whatever it is, you have to put in the time and you have to study. I've taken praxis tests in my educational journey, and I did a lot of studying preparing to take those tests. You just have to study. There's no way around it. There's not a magic button. You have to study. Here are some suggestions on materials that will help you with that journey. On each of the sites, the praxis, the foundations of reading, and the EdTPA, you can get study materials straight from those sites. So you know they're good materials because they're coming from those actual vendors. It'll be sample questions, information that gives you the breakdown on the test so that you know what you need to prepare for. So those are great materials that are right there at your fingertips. Me personally, I'm old. I like a book. I want to hold something in my hand. I know that it's a lost art with those of you that are younger, but if you want to go out to like Amazon, to Google, and look up independent vendors who have study manuals, there's several really good ones out there. I don't want to mention any specific ones as if I'm saying one's better than another, but there you'll see if you Google, let's say you're taking praxis 5941. You would put that information in your search bar, and they will come up, and you can order manuals. They're not expensive, $30-ish, and they're usually really wonderful study supplements. They'll have chapters on the areas that you'll be tested on. They'll have practice tests in the back that you can take and grade yourself so you can find your weaknesses. They will also give you the time limits for the test so you can make sure you're practicing within the same time allotted for your test. So I personally find those manuals to be very, very helpful. I know it's old school, but it really does work. Lastly, if you are enrolled in a program at a college or university, so maybe you're going to be moving to the IEC approach, you're partnered up with a college or university, that's a golden opportunity for you. A lot of times at the universities, they have tutorials, they have extra practices within the cohorts that you can do, extra courses that you can take above and beyond that help you to prepare for those tests. So speak with your advisors or your certification people at your colleges and see what they offer that, that they can provide and help you. If you're not with a college or university, maybe you're going to be moving to that provisional approach. And so you're going to be taking the courses here and there. You're not enrolling in a program. That's when you're going to need to either use one of the suggestions I gave earlier, or check with your school system. Sometimes the school system will offer additional supports to help you practice. That's something that's helpful if it's available. And then, of course, just use you've got your greatest resources usually in the classrooms right around you. And those are seasoned teachers that have passed these tests and gone on to be certified. They can share their expertise and help to guide you as well. So never be afraid to ask for help from friends. Teachers, just as a group, we always want to help each other. So take advantage of that. And then finally, again, as I said before, just those last suggestions, utilize your colleges and universities if that's something that works for your particular situation. Use your school systems and your fellow teachers if it's not. And then there are a lot of other vendors out there. And again, I don't want to endorse one over the other, but you all know how to use Google, and there are lots of test prep companies out there that are really good that you can, pay additional fees for, that help you if you know what you're struggling with taking these tests. I think that's it. I talked really fast. Shavon, what did I miss?
You have a question?
Okay.
If you have to do the bundled praxis, can you take one section at a time, or do you have to do them all together?
You can definitely take one section at a time. If you're talking about the elementary 5901, if you register 5901, you're registering for all three. Now, the plus to that is it's cheaper a little bit. The minus to that is it's a lot of information at one time being tested. You can register for the 5903, that's your math. Take that test, get your passing score, then register for 5904. That's your social studies. And then 5905 is your science. So it's totally up to you whether you sit for all those at one time or if you want to tackle them individually. The early childhood test is 5205. I just saw that question pop in too.
All right. Well, we thank you all so very much for inviting us tonight. I see that there's still a lot of questions, which I figured there would be. Dr. Shields shared our contact information. If you'll just send an email, if you still have additional questions about your specific situation, send an email. Please make sure to include your ALSDE ID number or your teach number in your email, along with a contact number, and we'll more than likely give you a call back versus emailing you back. So if you'll send us a message, we'll get back with you just as soon as possible. Thank you so much for having us, and we hope that you found the information that we shared tonight beneficial. And so we'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Shields.
Thank you. Wow. We talk like this is a lot of information, and you guys did a beautiful job covering it in a really tight timeline. I did put up your contact information again. I know you saw in the chat, 100 people like, can I call you tomorrow? So I have a feeling you're going to have some busy phone calls and some emails, but what a gift it is for you to join us. They have been asking us these questions for what now, 12 weeks, Shanthia? And we're like, hold that thought. We're going to have the experts here. So, thank you, Dr. Stanton and Dr. Peacock and Ms. Harris for being so gracious with your time and your talents to meet with this group. They did have some really intriguing questions, like a lot of what ifs. And I'm like, we'll have to think through that. So I'm glad that's your job, but thank you all. We're gonna make sure you have access to all these slides. Of course, it is a lot of information, but that's why it means so much. And we want to make sure that you have access to it. As we are closing out, and I can't even believe it. Like for real, we will stay online like we normally do. If you have very specific questions, I definitely think I'm going to go back to what Ms. Harris and I think even Dr. Peacock mentioned that. If you have a very specific question, it might do you better to contact them directly, because your situation might be so unique that they need to actually look more into your certification history, your work history, to be able to give you the best advice. Now, homework. This is it. So remember when we created our norms, one of our collective norms is that we're going to have these 12 weeks of learning. And one of the things that we're responsible for is taking responsibility for impact. So we didn't spend these 12 weeks, although we love your comments about fellowship and connecting with so many others. But now it's our job to take what we've learned to help kids in our community. So your homework is to take everything that you've learned to improve those outcomes for not just your kids, but your school, your profession. We expect you in the next 5 years to be those mentor teachers to people. Many of you said in your comments, it's wonderful to be around folks who've been where we are. And so we ask that one thing, and that you pay it forward as you continue your journey to certification. We want you to keep us posted when you do something great. It is such a happy for us to get an email to hear how something went for you. Ms. Washington, anything else we can think in terms of like these final assignments?
No, I don't have anything as far as the final assignments are concerned, but we just want to say, just remember and reflect on all the wonderful things that you have actually learned through these sessions. And we hope that you are implementing them in your classrooms. I know that you've given us tons of examples where you have already, but we want to make sure that you don't just take them and tuck them away. Use our resources that we have made available to you and implement those wonderful things within your classrooms. And we're just looking forward to additional excitement that you can share with us as you reach these various milestones in the profession.
And if you'll look around the room, I see many of our State Department and other presenters have joined to be part of this last session. I hope that they are hearting or putting their hands up so that you can see them. I don't know how many of you paid attention, how many have come back, even though they weren't presenting, but they felt so connected to this work. They wanted to hear more about your journeys and be part of that. I did put in the link, in the chat. Thank you. The attendance link, we'll go ahead and put the slides because there is a lot of wonderful information in there as well. Let me go ahead and throw that in if we haven't already. And I'm going to just remind as folks are kind of logging off and some are staying on to ask some questions. This is not goodbye. This is see you later. We have, as you already know and have seen, I hope, we have field staff across the state and they know about you and they're coming to find you and give you hugs and lots of support. So be looking for some visitors in your classroom to just kind of check in on you, see how you're doing. And of course, you can always reach out to us. And as Ms. Washington said, we just can't thank you enough for letting this be part of our season and your season and growing together. If you need to unmute at this point or ask questions, I'm going to stop recording so that you can do that.